which creepy urban legend turned out to be true. The ghost squirrel in my hometown of Dorking, UK. There was a ghost squirrel called Albie that was only ever seen in the graveyard at the church in town. Turns out, it was an albino squirrel that had a nest in one of the trees in the graveyard. Unfortunately, he became roadkill a couple years back. Oh man, I have one. When I was teen there were rumors of Snowsuit Man, a dude that used to wander the big park in my city at night, in the summer, in a snowsuit all done up from head to toe, hood and everything. It was rumored he used to ask people walking through the park to beat him up. I know. Pretty outrageous, right? One night a bunch of us were chilling in said park being teens, smoking weed and goofing around. All of a sudden in the distance we see a person. It wasn't unusual to see other people in the park, even in the middle of the night like this. What is unusual is that you could see the person was dressed in white from head to toe. As he got closer a silence fell over all of us as we realized, holy ducking shit, that is a person in a goddamn snowsuit. We were terrified and amazed all at once. He sat on a bench a little down the path from us, just sitting there. One of my more adventurous, or stupid maybe, friends went over, sat on the bench a bit, then came back over. Snowsuit Man didn't ask to get his ass kicked like we heard. In fact, he didn't respond or even acknowledge my friend's presence. He did apparently smell absolutely awful. It was obvious. My friend said that he didn't take that thing off and shit in piss in there, as evidenced by the massive stains he saw when he got closer. So there you go. Well, not exactly like we heard. Unless it wasn't a night he felt like getting beat up. The ducking Snowsuit Man exists. Out here in Washington there were rumors of a fairy house in the woods somewhere. One park ranger decided to go hunting for it, and he actually did find a tree house in the woods. When he looked inside he found a ton of child pornography. He took it down and came back a while later and found it had been put back up. They eventually found who had been using the tree house and arrested him. I lived near a lake and there was an urban legend that there were huge lake monsters near the hydroelectric dam. Most people thought it was just some fisherman's tall tales. We all guessed it was just a twist on the classic The One That Got Away. Turns out divers went into the water behind the dam for a routine inspection to see if there was any damage after months of heavy flooding in the area. Apparently one of the divers got too close to what he originally thought was a large moss-covered rock/boulder until it moved and tried to latch onto the diver's arm. Apparently there are ± 200 pounds catfish behind the dam, which thrive on the dead fish that go through the hydroelectric portion of the dam. The agitated water makes it easier for the large catfish to breathe and grow past what is commonly found in the area. And the lack of fishes, as all commercial fishing is banned for at least 1,000 meters, means these fish are truly free to grow to truly enormous sizes. We all joked that our middle school pet teacher was a pedophile. He got arrested a few years ago for taking pictures of the female students and trading them for child porn. Not really a legend, unless you didn't believe it. My town and surrounding area has multiple old pirate smuggling tunnels under it, going from towns to beaches. Most of the tunnels are under pub or shop basements. Also, when I say pirate I do mean pirates. Penzance, UK. Not creepy, but in my small rural hometown, there was a rumor that a bunch of city officials, cops, teachers, business owners, etc., basically anyone a kid would see as an authority figure, had massive orgies. Obviously as you grew up you came to your senses. Until one year, when a teacher's husband stomped the absolute shit out of a local business owner in broad daylight. Turns out the legend wasn't just a legend. His wife was apparently a member of what was called the Hot Tub Club and he wasn't invited. A good chunk of local leaders got outheaders hosting orgies somewhat regularly. I'm more surprised it was kept secret, as long as it was. It was only a legend for like a week, but a kid went missing on the same property we lived on and everyone thought his brother had something to do with it, but police said no. He was kidnapped. Turned out the brother had killed his brother and buried him in our backyard. We had an older couple that would come into the store I worked at when I was 15. They clearly had mental development/mental health problems and the rumor was they were siblings and the two teenage girls with them were their children. About 5 years later I'd find out someone had called the state about them and turns out from what I remember, to be mostly true. The parents were apparently the result of incest, and they carried on the family tradition, as it were. I think the state removed their daughters and put them in state custody since they weren't able to take care of themselves. And I don't remember what happened to the parents. In my hometown there was a local legend about a man who would sometimes be seen having sex with trees. Some called him Mr. Woodcock, but he was more commonly known as the tree shagger. Although it must be nonsense, but one night a friend and I were out walking his dog along a narrow, tree-lined lane. We heard a grunting sound from the undergrowth. And there he was. He was wearing a long overcoat which had wrapped around a poor innocent tree, and he had his trousers around his ankles as he defiled the shrubbery with a flagrant disregard for splinters. I'm always late to these things. In Kenya, Mombasa, there was a story about a woman with long black hair and a white dress who would be seen around the beach at night, and it was to stop people from being at the beach swimming in the ocean. Turned out to be true, as older lady would sleepwalk on the beach in her nighties. Even she didn't know until locals found the courage to follow her home. When I was young living rural Ontario, we were told as children not to wander too far into the forest, saying that a monster would get us and we wouldn't come home. If anybody knows who Rochthrialt is, that actually turned out to be painfully true. I often wonder if Stephen King's Children of the Corn was based on a northern town in Maine. I don't recall the name of the town, but my friends and I stopped in on our way to the furthest US point east. The town struck me very weird because every store clerk was like 14 to 17 maximum. Not just 1 or 2 stores every store. Aside from ourselves, we did not come across one adult in the tour, so as we were there, it was a depressed town, nearly a ghost town, and left me with a really unsettled feeling. Black Volga. In the 60s and 70s. There existed an urban legend in Poland that vampires in black limousines were kidnapping people, preferably little children. It was a tale parents told their kids who would then tell their friends, etc. Turns out it was a rumor that was spread by the Polish secret police, who actually used black cars to kidnap people. The aim was that no one would believe someone who would report they had witnessed a kidnapping. I remember being wary around all black cars, since I'd never seen a Volga. Also, I heard the version of the tale where they would kidnap people to steal their organs and then dump their bodies by the road, which is messed up. This version of the story was even told here in Germany, at least back in the 90s. We always had to stay away from black, polished cars if we wanted to keep our kidneys. Welcome to the World of AIDS is an urban legend about a man meeting a woman at a bar, going back to his place to sleep together, only to have him wake up to her being gone, and the famous slogan "Welcome to the World of AIDS" written on his bathroom mirror. The urban legend has many different variations. It was just a parable about casual sex and risk. This was largely considered an urban legend. That is, until stealth posing actually turned out to be a very real thing. Modern actual cases involve a British man named Daryl Rao, who, already knowing he had HIV, would send a text after sex to his many victims saying things like "I have HIV lol, oops and I'm riddled." Others have also been convicted for knowingly doing this on Craigslist. Not really an urban legend, but a fish cafe in my hometown says that its supports are made out of whale bones. Turns out many years ago a whale got stranded on a nearby island and died, and the owner took some rib bones and used it as arches for his business. That creepy old guy living down the street was actually the Golden State Killer. He lived in my neighbor. I've passed his house every day for years. I never talked to him, but it's crazy to think as kids we would play at the house 2 houses away from his. The second creepiest part of this is that he lived in your neighbor. Sewer alligators. If alligators and other animals are flushed or disposed of into plumbing, yeah, they can survive and hang out. Please subscribe and leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.